governor of the Commonwealth of the state of Florida. He and his wife, Casey, they lived there. His wife, Casey, a cancer survivor, a former Emmy Award-winning television host. They have three beautiful children and having the opportunity of leading that great state. And I think for all of us who have the opportunity of kind of knowing who Governor DeSantis is, there's no question that he's always been a person who fights for the rights that are given not only by the Constitution, but the rights that are given directly from God. He has fought for the freedoms of Floridians. And in fact, just last night, he was speaking in Ohio. He flew all the way back to Florida. And last night, after the legislature there in Florida passed the bill, he signed the Heartbeat Protection Act. And as he signed that into the law in the state of Florida, it will protect all unborn babies because he recognizes and knows that life is a gift from God. And so, Governor DeSantis, our mission here at Liberty, we've always been singularly focused on training champions for Christ, and so we thank you today for coming to help inspire our students to become champions for Christ and whatever it is that they might do. Would you join me in welcoming the 46th governor of the state of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis?
I bring greetings from the free state of Florida. And just as a matter of personal privilege, I'd like to thank so many of you for thinking and praying about my family when my wife, Casey, Florida's First Lady, was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2021. And I can tell you this, when we got the news and we were talking about it as a family, deciding whether this would be something that we would make public, in those days and maybe even a week where it was private, it was tough. You didn't know what was going to happen. You have a mother of 3 very young children, and you see that life can be very fragile. But I'll tell you this, when we put out the statement, letting folks know that this is something she was going to have to fight, the prayers that we received as a result of that lifted up her spirit. She was able to go through a lot of excruciating treatment and surgery. And I can tell you right now, she's never been healthier, never been better. The prayers have been answered. And we're proud of what she did to be a role model for other women, and we're proud of what she's done to help the great state of Florida. We're also proud of Florida's role that we've played in our country over these last 4 years. When freedom and our very own way of life in so many other jurisdictions throughout our land withered on the vine, Florida held the line. We chose facts over fear. We chose education over indoctrination. We chose law and order over rioting and disorder. When the world went mad, when common sense suddenly became an uncommon virtue, Florida stood as a refuge of sanity, a citadel of freedom for people throughout our country and indeed throughout the world. We faced attacks, we took the hits, we weathered the storms, but we stood our ground. We did not back down. We had the convictions to guide us, and we had the courage to lead. And because of our efforts, Florida is now leading the nation. We are #1 in the country for net in-migration. We are the #1 fastest growing state in these United States. We rank #1 in new business formations. Of course, we rank #1 in tourism. We are #1 in economic freedom. We are #1 in education freedom. We are #1 for parental involvement in education. And as proud as we are of that, it's important to note none of that was preordained. When I ran for governor in 2018, I ran as an underdog. A lot of people had written me off. We were able to win election, but we won election by 32,000 votes out of over 8 million votes cast. That is less than 0.5%. And if you look at Florida's history, that was nothing out of the ordinary for how these races had gone. If you go back 10 years, 2010, 14, 12, 16, 18, presidential race, governor race in Florida, almost always decided by 1 point. And so I was told, listen, this state has a very precious political balance. You got in by the skin of your teeth. Don't rock the boat. Bide your time. Keep your head down, because you never know, if you come out too hot on something, you could end up losing support and not be able to win election in the future. And I understood that advice, and it wasn't crazy advice, but I nevertheless rejected that advice. My view is very simple. I may have earned 50% of the vote, but that entitled me to wield 100% of the executive power, and I intended to do that to advance an agenda that I believe was right for the state of Florida. We would not do that agenda based on putting our finger in the wind or looking at polls. And in fact, to this day as governor, I've never taken a poll about any issue my entire time. Leaders are not captive to poll results. Leaders set out a vision. Leaders execute that vision, and leaders deliver results. And when you do that, it doesn't matter what the polls were before that, you can change public opinion. People will support you if they see you're doing a good job. We also understood that as governor, you can make the best decisions in the world, you could have the best policies in the world, but if you don't have a cadre of people serving in your administration who shares the mission and is going to put the mission over their own personal interests, none of this stuff's going to end up getting carried out. So we made it very clear, anyone serving in our administration, if you're bringing any other agenda other than the best interest of the people of Florida, pack your bags right now and we will show you the door. We also said that we're not just going to sit back and try to avoid issues or hope that issues get resolved, not want to wade into things because we're worried about creating any type of blowback. Any decision you make as a leader, there's going to be some people that like it, there's going to be other people that don't. And some elected officials think, well, if I just don't make decisions and I'm just not out and about, then fewer people are going to disapprove of some of the decisions that you make. Got it? We okay here? Okay, we're good. Thank you. So sometimes they want to just get into office and they act basically like potted plants. Well, that's not what we were going to do in Florida. I said we're going on offense from day one. We're going to make sure that we're identifying issues, that we're aggressive at raising issues that are important to the people of our state. And I don't care what the media says. I'm going to do what I think is right. And so that's the framework that we did. And finally, we understood going into office that when you're elected to an executive position, you know, it shouldn't be the same as getting elected to some of these other offices. Not that they're not important, but the #1 quality you need in an executive is leadership. And leadership is really about having the courage to make difficult decisions in the teeth of opposition and in the teeth of criticism. A leader must have the confidence to stand alone if the moment calls for it. And so what ended up happening in Florida, as we got in, we were clicking, doing a lot of great stuff, and then COVID hit, and that really changed everything. And I had to make decisions as a leader. Do I just go along with the crowd, or do I look at this stuff myself and make decisions that are going to cut against the grain? Yes, it opens me up to huge criticism. No governor in this country was attacked more by legacy media and the political left than I was, but I had to make the decision, what are you in this for? Are you in it to protect your own political hide? No, you've got to be willing to put the interests of the people you represent, put their jobs ahead of trying to protect your own job. And so that's what we did when we handled COVID. I didn't know how the political chips would fall, but I was totally willing to let it fall wherever they may, as long as I could look in the mirror knowing I did what I thought was right. So fast forward to November of 2022. We went at it our way, we did it our way, and the results were, we didn't win by just 32,000 votes, we won by over 1.5 million votes. We earned the highest percentage of the vote that any Republican governor candidate has ever received in the history of the state of Florida. We won 62% of the Hispanic vote. We won independents by 18 percentage points. We were able to help secure super-majorities in the Florida House and the Florida Senate. We were able to help elect 29 conservative school board members throughout the state of Florida who are standing for parents' rights and standing for good curriculum. And we have now, after the 2022 election, for the first time since the Civil War era, there's not a single Democrat that's elected to statewide office in the state of Florida. And you can see it with how people have voted with their feet and how they've decided to register to vote. When I got elected governor, there were almost 300,000 more registered Democrats in the state of Florida than Republicans, and there had never, in the history of Florida, ever been more registered Republicans than Democrats. Well, by the time I got reelected, we not only had more Republicans than Democrats, we had 300,000 more Republicans than Democrats in November. But get this, we were 300,000 ahead then. The train is still going. We now have 455,000 more registered Republicans than Democrats. That's people switching their registration, going from independent to R, going from D to R. One legacy media outlet, when they saw what happened with the election and the registration trends, had a headline that said, quote, "There's no plan, there's nothing. Florida Democrats in despair over the future." I don't know about you, but if you're from my neck of the woods and you have my perspective, that's what you call winning. And so we are doing that in Florida. And as important as the 22 election was, the reality is Americans have actually been voting for many years now. They've just been voting with their feet. And the results of that behavior has been just as stark as our landslide victory in November. States and cities that are governed by leftist politicians pursuing leftist ideology have seen crime skyrocket. They've seen their taxpayers abused. They've seen medical authoritarianism imposed, and they've seen core American principles discarded. The woke agenda has caused millions of Americans to leave these jurisdictions for greener pastures. This has been a great exodus of Americans. Florida has served as the most desired destination, a promised land of sanity in a world that has increasingly gone off its rocker. We have embraced freedom. We have maintained law and order. We have protected the rights of parents. We have elevated the importance of family and promoted a culture of life. We have respected our taxpayers, and we have rejected woke ideology. We fight the woke in the legislature. We fight the woke in the corporations. We fight the woke in the schools. We never, ever surrender to the woke mob. We have made Florida the state where woke goes to die. The woke mind virus represents a war on merit. It represents a war on achievement. It's a form of cultural Marxism that seeks to use identity politics to divide Americans. But perhaps most of all, the woke represents a war on the truth. And as a leader, I don't seek adulation. I don't seek any fanfare. All I seek is the pursuit of the truth. Now, truth is the key to leading a fulfilling life, having a strong family, a prosperous community, and even a successful state and country. Truth is enduring. You can try to cover it up, you can try to hide it, you can try to distort it, but as time goes by, the deceit and the lies fade away, and what is true remains. Yes, the truth will set you free. Because woke represents a war on truth, we must wage a war on woke. It is wrong for a teacher in school to tell second graders that they may have been born in the wrong body or that their gender is a choice. In Florida, gender ideology has no place in our schools, and if that means taking on Disney to make sure that's the case, we will do it. It is wrong to have a swimmer compete for 3 years on the men's swim team, switch to the women's team, and then win the women's national championship. That is a fraud. That is wrong. It is also wrong for physicians to pump minors with puberty blockers or to perform sex change operations on them. And in Florida now, physicians who are doing those things to these minors will lose their medical license. The truth matters. Our country is floundering because so many of our institutions have become unmoored from the truth, and they've been lost in a sea of relativism. Our nation's founders understood that self-government doesn't run on autopilot. They knew that freedom was fragile, and it required us as citizens to be good caretakers of our heritage of freedom. When the Founding Fathers met in Philadelphia in 1787 to design what became the U.S. Constitution, they came armed with having studied the history of every republic that had ever existed in the history of mankind, because they wanted to draw lessons about what had happened in the past and how they could apply those lessons to launching the American experiment. And there was really only one thing that all of those previous republics had in common, and it was this. Every single one of them had failed, and failed miserably. So they understood that it really fell to the United States of America to determine once and for all whether people really could govern themselves. Could you have a society based on the idea that our rights are God-given and that we should be governed under a rule of law, not the whim of individual men? Or is mankind forever destined to live under various forms of tyranny? And they correctly understood that it would be the American experiment that would ultimately answer that question. But they also knew that it wasn't something as simple as just having a great Declaration of Independence and designing a great Constitution. When Benjamin Franklin walked out of the Federal Convention in 1787, he was stopped on the street by a woman who said, "Dr. Franklin, what have you given us, a republic or a monarchy?" And Franklin said, "A republic, ma'am, but only if you can keep it." They understood that the survival of the American experiment would require dedication to true American principles. We need to see a revival of those principles in our country today. We must embrace our founding creed that our rights are not the courtesy of the government. They are the gift from Almighty God. We must reject the idea that constitutional self-government can be subcontracted out to technocratic elites who reduce individuals to mere data points. We must insist on the restoration of time-tested constitutional principles so that a government of, by, and for the people shall not perish from this earth. Florida has proved that it can be done. We offer a ray of hope that better days may still lie ahead. I am proud of the achievements we have made in the state of Florida. I'm honored to be here, and I look forward to the battles ahead. I will fight the good fight, I will finish the race, and I will keep the faith. Thank you all. God bless everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Well, Governor, we thank you for being here today, but we've got a whole group of people over here who got to watch your back or you on screen. So we're going to walk over here just so they have an opportunity. So Governor DeSantis, we do appreciate all your leadership. We appreciate how you have brought your faith into the marketplace and into the public square. And here at Liberty, we always want to honor people who make those kinds of commitments and have that kind of success. And so I want to invite our Provost and Chief Academic Officer, Scott Hicks, to come up, and we would like to honor you today. We'd like to honor you today as we'd like to make you actually a graduate of Liberty University. So Scott, if you would.
Well, sir, we are so grateful for you. On behalf of our students and all of Liberty University, it's just an honor to have you here, and it's very humbling for us.